Where would you? Okay, well, let's start with. Should the marches go ahead today?
Look, the way I heard about this incident starting, the terror attack, was on Thursday morning in synagogue from my rabbi. I had been in since. Turns out I arrived at about 9:30 on Thursday morning, about the same time as the terror attack took place, and it took until 11:30 for news to reach us because someone had to at some point inform the rabbi in our community, and it dramatically affected the tenor of the day from what we were talking about to how I felt praying to when I came back later that day back to the community. It was no longer an open door that I went through and saw the security guard. The door was locked. I had to someone knocked on the door to say I was okay to come in. It was suddenly a very different atmosphere. So I can see how the way in which British Jews feel right now in the UK has shifted. But it's also important to remember that we're not the only cog in this machine, and we're not the only people in this society. And there's, I think, an important need to balance effectively, civil liberties. And we know that civil liberties right now are under threat. The right to protest is something that we've all taken for granted for many years, that British Jews have needed as well. We've been protesting, often at times that are uncomfortable for the government, at times that are uncomfortable for other, against the Labour Party when it was led by Jeremy Corbyn. There's a need for us to remember that, okay, maybe a protest won't feel great for me, but it doesn't mean the protest shouldn't happen anyway.
An extraordinary answer, I have to say. You have a very big heart, Amos, a very big heart.
Well, that's my doctor.
Do you have you, I mean, some Jewish people go on the Palestine Action protests. Have you ever been minded to do anything like that?
I've not been part of those particular protests. I have protested for Palestine most often in Jewish-led protests, because the protest itself feels closer to how I might feel. And many of my friends protest in the marches that happen frequently across London and across the UK in support of Palestine and Palestinians, because there's devastation going on in Gaza, being led by the IDF. In a manner that I consider to be completely, heartless, unstrategic, and destructive to the kind of country that I want to see, both the kind of Israel I want to see and the kind of Palestine I want to see. And so I can, when I protest wanting to see that vision, wanting to see an end to the devastation in Gaza that has seen tens of thousands of killed, hundreds of thousands injured, millions displaced. And when I do protest and when my friends protest, they are greeted as Jews in those places. And I appreciate that not everyone will always feel like those are welcoming places for them, but this sense that they are inherently an unsafe thing, which I've heard, for Jews to be in, simply doesn't bear fact. It's
so helpful for me journalistically, and I'm sure it is for many of the listeners to hear. I mean, my best friend's Jewish, so I hear a narrative similar to your own, which is not represented necessarily in our legacy media. Bringing you back to the proposition of the demonstrations today, is it fundamentally un-British for the demonstration to go ahead today, as our Home Secretary suggests?
I think that I'll use the Jewish term, but it's a very British term as well. In Judaism, there's an idea of shalom bayit, which is sort of a harmonious or peaceful home. And there's something very British about the idea that we are, we want to live well with our neighbours. You want to be able to see the person living by you as a friend, as someone you can reach out to, you can get a bit of milk from, or whatever it is. And I think that is an important sentiment, that we need to be able to live well together. And I think that that's something that I hope will be with the people who protest today, whether they're protesting in London, Manchester, or anywhere else. That, my hope is that in the part of our minds that are thinking about what's going on here at home, there is maybe a different tenor to what is said at these protests and how the protesters feel. But it's also important to remember that these protests are happening when there's the flotilla, the international flotilla that was stopped just outside Israeli waters. That there is, as we've been hearing, really excitingly, the deal that Hamas are negotiating around and has been accepted tentatively. There's so much more that we need to have our voice heard around, and the right to protest about, around Palestine Action. There's so much that we need to be talking about.
So my reservation is based, I think, only on, I was listening to you and I was thinking, what is my problem? And it's just respect, really, that I am aware that on the day of the atrocity in Manchester, I think 53 people were killed in Gaza, and I can imagine that many in those protesting were thinking, even if we look at scale, that there's a reason for us to go out, and there is a reason for them to march. But for me, in these febrile times, it would just be nice for the other side, for want of a better word at this moment in time, to perhaps pause for a moment of reflection and to show respect to British people who've lost their lives. And, we can go back to protesting, the day after tomorrow. It's just, I just feel that it would be good for us, for both sides, for a little bit of respect. And today is an opportunity for that respect.
I think that the thing that I've been hoping for is that we take this idea of cohesion, of community cohesion and social cohesion more seriously across the country and from the top down. I don't know what the approach is that our government is taking to community cohesion, to making sure that the bonds that have taken years and decades to build up between Jewish communities and others, where there are, synagogues and community centres and schools, those have really fallen apart since October 7th. People have been seeing the world very differently from each other. And where there used to be really strong interfaith links and intercommunal links, those have really taken a beating. And for us to bring that respect back, we need to bring back trust, and we need to bring back that idea that people know each other and can spend time with each other. And seeing it as a one moment, if we sit out today, it'll be fine. That's not the answer. We need to have a real strategy, a real thought about how, whether it's the Home Office or the Ministry of Local Government, just someone at the top saying, okay, we're going to grapple this issue of cohesion, and we're going to start finding a way for the communities that have been torn apart to start building back together.